Racism is down, people! Unless we get these hate crimes up, we are out of a job! No more matcha lattes! Is this getting through to you?
If there's not enough racism, what if we made racism?
That's it!
I just want to make sure I understand. You're alleging that the Southern Poverty Law Center was paying the leaders of KKK and other groups to continue their operations? Is that?
I'm not alleging it. The grand jury returned an indictment that says that. And so what the investigation found, according to the indictment that was returned today, is that they were paying. So Southern Poverty Law Center is raising money, asking folks to give them money to dismantle racism. And over a very long period of time, they were using some of the money they raised from donors to pay to, they call them field, basically to informants, for information, for access, to just pay them for certain, to do certain things. And so, yes, that's exactly what the indictment charges.
I've been on there 32 years, and my wheelhouse has been the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL running the KKK, the Aryan Nations, all of them. It's come out. They got caught in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s doing it. It is well documented.
It's the biggest grift in at least modern American history, cutting into the literal DNA of these United States. On April 21st, 2026, a federal grand jury in Montgomery, Alabama, hit the Southern Poverty Law Center with an 11-count indictment, 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of false statements to a federally insured bank, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit concealment money laundering.
They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front.
One SPLC field source was even a member of the online leadership chat group that planned the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, making racist postings under SPLC supervision and helping coordinate transportation to the event. This is the very definition of a false flag setup on a massive scale. As this debacle unfolds, we're seeing the full picture of a vast conspiracy aimed at falsely labeling white men as the most violent racist threat to the country, a narrative that continues to drive the Democratic Party.
Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists coming out of fields with lighted torches. And remember what the president said when asked?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Their veins bulging.
Specifically that he was condemning them.
No, he did not. He said he walked out and he said, let's get this straight. The veins bulging on their, as they were screaming. Remember, just close your eyes and picture what it was. Their veins bulging. Their veins bulging. Nazi sympathizers carrying Nazi fags. Veins bulging.
Now, in other times, Democrats and Republicans alike would rely on the Southern Poverty Law Center to help us keep track of the movements of violent white supremacy in the country. The Southern Poverty Law Center has been a vigilant voice in civil society against radical white nationalist violence and extremism, neo-Nazism, and other forces across the political spectrum that spread organized hate from any quarter. The president, however, wants to undermine civil society organizations and to reduce our ability to defend ourselves against the virus of racial violence.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Racism is evil.
Damn it.
And those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as America.
Not to mention fudged nationwide arrest data that mislabeled black and brown suspects as white, and major cities conveniently stopping crime reporting to the FBI after Biden took office. For years, the SPLC sat on the safety teams of Facebook, old Twitter, and YouTube, directly advising on what content to demonetize, restrict, or nuke entirely. They choked out dissenting voices during the height of big tech censorship, manufactured Gamergate as male supremacy, labeled conservative Christians and parental rights groups as hate groups, and relentlessly targeted Alex Jones and InfoWars, which resulted in the Truth Organization being put under surveillance by the FBI.
Charlottesville was mainly a bunch of homosexual leftists dressing up like Nazis who'd all formerly worked for Obama or Hillary, part of their art club. And then they lured a bunch of reporters there and some real white supremacist so the police could stand down and collide them into the folks. I pointed out that some of the same leftist foundations are funding the white supremacists that are funding real white supremacists in Ukraine. I got sued for that, even though it's, they tried to say that I said some cameraman killed the girl. I didn't say that the cameraman killed them. I said it was all part of leftists coming out to come to this big event and hope there was some big crisis out of it to demonize the right in general and tie us to Nazis.
The SPLC branded Jones a top anti-government extremist, feeding tech giants the ammunition they needed to ban InfoWars across multiple platforms in 2018 and wipe out his reach overnight. 4 months before Charlie Kirk was murdered, the SPLC placed Turning Point USA on their hate map right next to the KKK and neo-Nazis. On top of it all, this so-called poverty nonprofit sits on a near billion-dollar war chest stashed in global tax havens. The SPLC is denying everything and crying political weaponization, but the black and white evidence is in the indictment. The American people deserve better than being played for suckers by professional fearmongers. The entire country should sue. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
All right, we are here. Welcome to the show. It's April 22nd, 2026, and thank you for being here. Well, we have followed this for many years, that Southern Poverty Law Center is directly involved with the takedown of InfoWars. We've known that. And now with this indictment, 11 indictments, and, I'm not big on them doing anything because they are a lot of smoke and mirrors. And you know what? Maybe because they're losing so bad in the polls and doing all this stuff that is completely off the rails, that maybe they're going to do something to try to save face with the American people. But right now I'm at that part where I'm like, show me, because I don't believe anything that comes out of this administration. We've seen indictments, a couple already. Brennan, is a prime example. The Georgia AG, they dismissed them. We know that they're full of shit. So if they do this, I will be the first one to say good job. But right now, I don't trust. I just don't. But we're going to get into it. We're going to cover a little bit of this. The indictment, we're going to cover a little bit of that, and a little walk down memory lane on this Wednesday night, just to remind everybody, what exactly happened over the last 10 years that, what's been going on for 20, but, 10 years in our face, with the the whole thing with Trump and all that stuff. I mean, it's always been this, call there. Okay. So let me back up. I got something in my throat. Might be this fan's on too high. Everything around racism has came from them and Lincoln Project and all those left-wing groups that say that it's all the white people in America that are racist and all that stuff. We know this. We're clear on that, right? We're super clear that that's their false flag operation that they've been running for many years, saying that white people are racist, and they're the ones that brought racism about, because generally we're not racist. That went away really in the 70s. Like the whole racist thing been gone for decades. So when they're pushing that, we know right away that it's some some narrative they're trying to push to get the people that that the uninformed people riled up. We know this. That's why they call it a false flag, right? Because they just get people riled up around black, white, Mexican. I mean, all that. The only thing I remember a little bit of racism that was going on was around 9/11. A lot of people thought that anybody that was Eastern Indian were terrorists. Remember when all that was going on? And that's considered some kind of racism. Yeah, sure. But besides that, I mean, and the information that we had back then was not the truth, but we didn't know that at the time. And it's like, that's the reason why every time we see something, we check it, double check it, triple check it, verify it, and then think about it for a little bit longer, pray about it, and then report on it, because they always give us a line of crap. Charlie Kirk, Butler shooting. And by the way, we're going to get into some of this on Friday. Butler shooting, we got that on our radar right now. We got Charlie Kirk and that whole thing with TPUSA and Erica Kirk and all that stuff. We're going to get into all that on Friday. And we're going to cover a few things like that. We're also going to cover the takedown of InfoWars. We're going to get into that. And that is going to be headline news tomorrow when they close InfoWars. Is it tomorrow? I guess it's not tomorrow, is it? It's the following week. But they have 6, 7, 8 days. Next Thursday, InfoWars closes. And, a lot of people have always said, oh, they got 50 lives, or that's all, oh, he's whatever they say about Alex Jones, about, the whole thing, that they're never going to go away. It's just an attempt to make money. Well, if you know the inside information is the Onion is actually out right now at all the news organizations talking about how they now own InfoWars, but they don't. So we're going to get deep into that on Friday, on a Friday Night Live show at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hopefully you can make it for that. It's going to be a big show. But let's get into this. So let's cover let's cover the indictment. Let's them out the sticks talking about it, and then we'll be back. Bye.
Know that this investigation was opened during the Biden administration and then mysteriously closed. I really don't have any information about why it was closed. And then we started again last year. The FBI did, working with the U.S. attorney in Alabama. And it's extraordinarily egregious. You just talked about it. But imagine a donor to the SPLC if they were told, by the way, we're going to give the money you're giving us to the Ku Klux Klan. Okay? Like, it's in some cases over $1 million. I mean, it's incredible.
Now, they say they're no longer using these informants in this way, and that it was necessary because they had all sorts of threats against the organization, firebombing threats, and other acts of purported violence. And that's why they had to use these informants. And to that, you say?
Well, to that, I say, for one, the indictment charges all the way through 2023. So I'm here to speak about what they're doing right now, but that indictment charges a long period of time through 2023. And second, and more importantly, there's no allegation or information in the indictment that suggests they shared that information with law enforcement. They have communicated.
They said they did.
Well, they have communicated when they so chose with law enforcement over the years. There's no information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement. To the contrary, or else we would have known from their own words that they had given this money to these guys, and we didn't know it.
What about Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally? Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
So just so people understand watching this, did these informants in some cases, given the evidence you've seen, actually initiate what would ultimately be these activities? And obviously Charlottesville ended with a tragedy.
Well, we know that they were part of those. They were part of it. Whether they were the leaders or the initiators, that'll come out, I think, eventually. But what we do know is that the very entities that this group was raising money to go against are the very entities that they were taking the money in and paying to these entities and these individuals associated with those groups.
What was the money used for?
Well, we don't know, because again, all we know is that they set up these fictitious bank accounts.
Fake names, like the Constitution Group or whatever it was called. Then they had one called Fox Photography.
Right, they're completely fictitious as far as the investigation has shown. Good afternoon. Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. The indictment describes this conduct in detail, but one troubling example is that the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more. This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front. Now, as the indictment lays out, after SPLC paid members of these extremist groups, it created work product that reported on these activities that the members participated in or contributed to. And to that end, it was doing the exact opposite of what it's told its donors it was doing.
So we remember, we go back in time, not very long, a couple years ago, maybe a couple years ago, we had the American Front out doing their thing. Remember, they had the Nazi flags and had American flags turned upside down, and they're all dressed the same. They look like feds. They were feds. They were paid for by this Southern Poverty Law Center, and they were actually all masked except for one person. I'm going to show you here in a minute. There's one person. He actually came on InfoWars to once upon a time, a year or two ago, and talked to Owen Schroyer when Owen was still at, excuse me, at InfoWars, and he was talking about how they're not this, not that, and I think it was part of them coming out to try and win over the people, the American people, the patriots. But you look at them, you could see they're all dressed the same. There's no right wing organization is that organized anyway. Like you look at all the rallies that have happened, all the people out there, letting their voices be heard. They're not that organized where they all wear the same thing. I mean, it's just clear that it's an organized Fed operation. We called it out back then over and over and over. And so now they're going to end up, if this is going to go, they're going to end up under indictment because of what they were performing, because they were whether or not they were violent. I don't think they ever were. I think it was just out there to stir hate and fear amongst American people. Funny, they were all white people with Nazi flags and American flags turned upside down. Distress. And let me just show you that, and so you have an idea, and then we're gonna break this down a little bit deeper so we understand what we're really doing here. Because when you think about what their idea of Southern Poverty Law Center, what their idea was they're supposed to be going against racism. I guess you could just say racism in general. And what they were doing is they were the ones causing the racism by promoting the racism and having people go out and make racism. That's kind of what what they called America Front would do. They went out there talking Heil Hitler and all that bullshit, right? And when you think about it, when have we ever seen anything like this? I mean, on occasion, and they're mostly all underground now, KKK and stuff like that. They're not out protesting on the street. It's just not a thing. They don't. It's not. You never see or hear of this stuff anymore since the 70s. Since that movement went away way back when. Black Panthers, KKK, all that stuff. That was way back when I was a kid. And I'm not young, so And so let me just show you a small short clip under a minute. I just want to show you, just to remind you who America Front is.
Patriot Front is here marching today in Denver, Colorado. We're here to draw attention to a number of drastic issues which are facing our people around the country and locally in the Denver metropolitan area. Most notably among them, the absolutely unrestricted and unmitigated invasion of our country by unassimilable foreigners who have no respect for our way of life and actively attempt to extort our country's resources for their own personal ends. On a number of other issues, we are seeking to honor the national holiday of Columbus Day and the discovery of this vast and great continent we call home. Thirdly, we seek to draw attention to the myriad of tyrannies exacted by our government upon our people.
Yeah, so remember those guys? They were out running around during 2020, 2021, 2024, around the election. and that's what they do. They look at them. They look like feds to me. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it to me. I don't know. Anyway, let's let John break this down for us a little bit better so we can understand exactly what they did over the course of the last 10 years. Stoltzel breaks it down pretty good. I'm probably chopping his name up, but hold on.
There are dangerous hate groups in America. Who will warn us about them? The media tell us.
The Southern Poverty Law Center.
The Southern Poverty Law Center. The Southern Poverty Law Center, based in that building in Alabama, calls itself the premier group monitoring hate groups and other extremists. Looking at their map of hate groups, you'd think hate groups were everywhere. I once believed what the center said. Well-meaning people still do. Apple gave them $1 million. But what donors don't know is that today the center smears good people.
The presence of radical Islam.
This Somalian woman speaks out against radical Islam. For that, the center put her on its list.
Join the fight against hate and bigotry.
Visit splcenter.org.
I do think that we have a problem with hate in this country.
We put about 10 of these major hate groups out of business.
When I first investigated the center, its leaders wouldn't talk to me. So liberal commentator Nomiki Kuntz defended them.
They have a long history of fighting against extremists like the KKK.
History, yes, but they labeled skeptical Muslims like Ayaan Hirsi Ali as haters.
If you have a horrible experience with religion, that's one thing. It's another thing to use those experiences as ammunition against others who are practicing their religion peacefully.
But they're just speaking, criticizing it.
Of course, she has the right to free speech, as does the Southern Poverty Law Center has a right to push back.
We can stand together against hate.
The center also calls the Family Research Council a hate group.
The definition of a marriage is what it's been for 5,000 years. It's the union of a man and a woman.
I often disagree with the council myself, but do they belong on this hate map?
When they don't agree with you politically, they're going to list you as a hater.
You are haters. You hate gays.
No, I don't hate gay people, and I know gay people, and I have worked with gay people.
But once you become a hate group, you're a target.
Developing now, word of a shooting at the Family Research Council there in Washington.
One man was so enraged by what the Southern Poverty Law Center said about the Family Research Council, he went to their headquarters to kill people.
A man shot the security guard in the arm.
Fortunately, that guard stopped the man before he could shoot anyone else.
He told the judge that he was there to kill as many of us as possible because we were a hate group.
The center also smears the Ruth Institute, a Christian group that believes gays should not have an equal right to adopt children. They're not haters.
I like gay people. I have no problem with gay people. That's not the issue. The issue is, what are we doing with kids and the definition of who counts as a parent? There could be cases where the best person for a particular child would be their Uncle Harry and his boyfriend. That could be. But we owe it to the children to give them the best we can, which generally is a married mother and father.
So you're a hater. When the Southern Poverty Law Center put the Ruth Institute on its hate map, the Institute's bank cut them off.
We've determined that you're an organization that promotes hate, violence, harassment, and so therefore we're not doing business with you.
The Ruth Institute and the Family Research Council are still on the hate list.
There's no appeal, and I sure don't know how you get off.
I suspect the center keeps its hate list long because that brings in lots of money.
Morris Dees' salary is more than my entire annual budget. So yeah, whatever they're doing, it pays.
It sure does. Years ago, Harper's Magazine reported that the center was the richest civil rights group in America, one that spends most of its time and money trying to make more money. They promised to stop fundraising once their endowment reached $55 million. But when they reached $55 million, they changed that to $100 million, saying that would allow them to cease costly fundraising. But when they reached $100 million, they didn't stop. They collected $200 million, then $400 million. Now they've got $730 million. But they still smear people to raise more money.
Much of which is in offshore accounts, Caymans and places like that.
How do you know?
Oh, we look at their 990s.
And it says Cayman Islands?
Yeah.
Now the Southern Poverty Law Center calls groups that simply oppose sexually explicit content in schools anti-government extremists. Moms for Liberty and Moms for America are on the hate map because they dare do things like seek school board seats to try to stop districts from disregarding opinions of parents. Give me a break. The center puts them on the hate map, but not Antifa, the hate group that beats up people on the right. The center's become a hate group itself. It's now a left-wing, money-grabbing slander machine.
So there's a hate map, and maybe we'll get into it on Friday because this is a shorter show. I just want to kind of cover this. what they would do is they would put you on a list, call the bank, your bank, whatever bank you bank with, and tell them that you're a racist, whatever, believing that you're part of some hate group, and then they get the bank to cancel you, so you couldn't have a bank account. This happened to lots of people in 2020 and before, really 17, 18. This is what happened to Alex Jones when Apple and everybody took him off the platform because they called him a white nationalist, whatever. I mean, and this is what they were doing, and I always wondered how they could get away with this. Well, it was because it's under the umbrella of their, trying to get rid of hate groups, but they're the ones paying all these, Ku Klux Klans, Aryan Brotherhood, or Aryan Nation, all these different places, all these different organizations they were funding them to push more racial hate, and all that stuff. And it's very interesting that it's taken this long for it to even come up. And according to the indictment, this is from 2023, but it goes back as far as 2017 when they were talking about it. Because remember, Trump was he was talking about this whole thing. And remember, they spun it into, Trump was saying that the hate groups were, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show you that right now in a second. But they were saying that Trump was, also racist and also belonged to a hate group, and Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and all that stuff were part of that, hate groups, that they put on this list where, to debank you and do all that stuff. This is what they were doing. I mean, it's clear that's what they, it's very clear that that's what they were doing and what they've been still doing. And, it has it lightened up in the last couple years. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it has, but also that we don't have a Democratic administration right now, because if we did, then we'd have the same thing going on that we had when Biden was in office, when they were doing the same thing, this hate group stuff. Who do you think was funding 2020? It was people like this group with Soros. I believe that they're all connected. I think that if you follow the money back to Southern Poverty Law Center, you're gonna run across Soros and all those fucking people, because I'm sure that the funding, which is weird, because when Doge was operating for that short time, they found out that Soros was collecting money from the U.S. government that they were using to spend to to create all these protests where they were going out with bricks and all that stuff. Remember all that stuff that was going on? That was part of this whole thing that they're, what do you call it? Stowing hate all over the United States and other countries too. It's not just the United States. Look at what they're doing in England and France and all that stuff. It's the same thing, right? It's the same stuff. So anyway, let me play these. I have 2 clips I'm gonna play. Let's see. Let me see. All right, stand by.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
The first thing you might have missed is just how much the media lies. Take what happened at the 2017 protest at Charlottesville. The media led people to believe that when Trump said there were fine people on both sides, he was saying that this included white nationalists and neo-Nazis. But if you actually listen to what Trump said in his press conference about the protest, it's clear that when he said there were fine people, he was talking about the people who were there to peacefully protest the removal of a statue.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was the debate that was going on when Trump was in office the first time, when they were tearing down statues and, you know, they took down George Washington. They took down all of them. They tore them all down. Remember when all that stuff was going on? I guess it was closer to 2019, I think, when all that was going on, because it was just before the COVID thing. It was during the, what would they call it? The George Floyd riots. Remember those? Yeah. And all this was going on. They start, talking about, racism, because what happens is Southern Poverty Law Center pumps out all this fear and all this stuff about hate and getting all these people all wound up, paying them money. Because remember, protests, 90% of protests now, it's not like it was in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, where people went out there for a cause and, for whatever the cause was when they were protesting back then, it was for a reason. The hippie movement was the main ones in the 60s and 70s that did that. And then, but nowadays there'll be some reason to go out there and protest. And people like Southern Poverty Law Center, George Soros, they'll put ads in the paper saying protest, make blah, 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 a certain amount of money. They're paying them very well in all these protests in the last 5-10 years. And this is all part of this false flag operation that Southern Poverty Law Center and George Soros and others were doing. I can't think of what they are right now, but check this out. Stand by.
Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists coming out of fields with lighted torches. And remember what the president said when asked?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Their veins bulging.
He said specifically that he was condemning them.
No, he did not. He said he walked out and he said, let's get this straight. The veins bulging on their, as they were screaming. Remember, just close your eyes and picture what it was. Their veins bulging. Their veins bulging. Nazi sympathizers carrying Nazi fags. Veins bulging. It's their veins bulging. Veins bulging. Veins bulging. How are you, baby? How old are you? Their veins bulging. It's their veins bulging. Bulging. Veins. Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys. Their veins, they're bulging. Their veins bulging. Their veins bulging. Veins is bulging. Bulging. Fewer. Have you ever heard this president say one negative thing about white supremacists? Have you ever heard it?
Racism is evil.
Damn it.
And those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as America.
That's a great clip. Remember back in the early days of Joe Biden, that his best friend was a KKK president of the KKK. Remember that? Bet you didn't know that the majority of slave owners back in the slave owner days were Democrats. Did you know that? Did you know that? You probably didn't know, or maybe my audience knows, but most people don't realize that it was the Republican Party that actually ended slavery. But they tell you today that all Republicans, are the reason for slavery. But the Republican Party was actually the party that ended slavery. So, I mean, there's a lot to get into around this. A lot of the historians talk about these things, and people don't listen because they have their ideas, and once they have their ideas in their head, that's it. I mean, it's almost impossible to do anything other than that. What's that word I was thinking of? I was thinking of sorry, I was answering a text message. You remember that the propaganda that they push on all of us is exactly that. And propaganda to get you riled up, to get you to think that some group, usually a white group or a group that a Republican group or whatever, that they're all racist because remember, Southern Poverty Law Center, they're the culprits that push the propaganda, and we call it a false flag, but just think what they've done to people like Alex Jones and others during the 2018, when everybody lost their Twitter accounts and their Facebook and their Apple accounts and all that stuff. That was all because of Southern Poverty Law Center and them putting people on their hate list. So we'll get more into this. I want to show you this clip though because it's a reminder of how they operate, the Democratic Party. Well, mostly Democratic Party. At this point, I believe that the Republicans play a part in it. But this particular thing where this hate group stuff really did come from the Democratic Party. But there are Republicans that jump on that wagon too. We know this. They're not perfect. That by no means. And the more I look into, and we're going to get into this week on Friday, we're going to get into what the truth is about Butler and all these different things that don't make sense because there's a lot of things that have really came to my attention by stepping back and not being in a bubble and finding out and seeing things that just didn't make sense, and now they're starting to make more sense now that I see a bigger Epstein files are out, all these different things that are happening. I'm seeing something broader that I didn't really see. My fault being too narrow-minded about it, but what I'm finding out is just horrible. What I'm seeing, and maybe it's because my prayers are deeper, and I'm taking a more interest in what I'm looking for instead of going one direction. I really am seeing some stuff that is just horrible. So we'll get into it on Friday, but stand by. Let me show you this clip of old Nancy Pelosi. It's a short one.
We call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic. And it's self-evident.
Self-evident. You remember that? Remember when she did that back in 2018? She was talking about how she was going to go after Trump and how she was going to make it happen by using propaganda. Whatever happened to Nancy Pelosi? I wonder where she's at nowadays. Think she's shriveled up in a corner somewhere? I don't know. I'm going to play one more. I think this is important for where we're at right now. Stand by.
supposedly low IQ to explain that the Israeli intelligence assessment, even though the IDF disagreed, by the way,
Israeli politician, leader, Naftali Bennett, explaining Israel's next step. Here's where they're going next. Watch.
A new Turkish threat is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in Syria, are seeking influence elsewhere and everywhere throughout the region. And from here, I warn, Turkey is the new Iran. Erdogan is sophisticated, dangerous, and he seeks to encircle Israel. We can't close our eyes again.
He's sophisticated and dangerous. It's hardly an endorsement of Erdogan, the Turkish leader, hardly an endorsement of him to say, when Bennett says he's dangerous, what he really means is he's sovereign. We can't tell him what to do. We don't fully control him. We can influence him, and it's clear that Israel and Turkey did have some kind of relationship in the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad in Syria last year, just a guess. But the real problem with Turkey is that it can't be controlled. So it is therefore a threat to Israel. And again, not attacking Israel. That's true.
Immediate, full, and unconditional withdrawal from all occupied Lebanese territories. Sustainable calm requires the full implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701 and unwavering respect for Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity along the blue line.
Israel is not just controlling our foreign policy, they're trying to get full control of the media, even more control of domestic policy to ensure on their flank their takeover of the Middle East and to make sure we join them in this. So this is the new world war being set up. We're supposed to pivot to deal with China. Nope, sorry. Israel says China can do whatever it wants. You work for us. It's a big deal. And if you talk about it, well, you're just anti-Jewish. What? Tucker is absolutely right. This is how big empires operate, and Israel is acting like an empire because it controls, to a great extent, the United States. They've got polls in Israel. The majority of Israelis want a greater Israel. They want half of Lebanon. They want large pieces of the rest of the Middle East. And if they think they can go take it, well, then, that's up to them. But we should not pay for it, and we shouldn't die for it. And so when Tucker Carlson recently came out and said that Turkey and Lebanon are next, that's because not just Netanyahu's party, but the other major parties, the other two conservative parties, they make up the majority together, they're openly giving speeches. I played them a few weeks ago here, saying yes. They're even trying to start selling advanced real estate speculative contracts on, once it's taken over, who will get first dibs on it. And so they're carpet bombing Christians in Lebanon, 30,000+ homes destroyed. And when you tune into the Christian, Zionist channels that are the dominant channels on cable, there's not a damn word about this, except Huckabee got asked about it a month ago by Tucker, saying, so according to your interpretation of Genesis, Israel can have the whole Middle East. And he said, yes, just take it all. You want to see the clip again?
It is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. Yeah. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Okay. So you go take it all then. And I've seen Netanyahu's deputy and the leaders of the other parties say on Fox News, Turkey is the new enemy after we take down Iran. Well, it's got the biggest conventional military in NATO. And they just worked with Turkey, Israel did a year and a half ago, right before Trump got in, to take down Assad and put al-Qaeda in. So it's just, it's a disgusting mess. It's a black hole. It's totally insane.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. The Israel Iran thing, the Turkey, they're surround, they're circling Turkey like they're gonna go after Turkey now. And it's just I don't I don't understand how we ended up in this except for Israel and the whole idea that Israel is running the White House. Just don't get it, man. I don't understand how we ended up here. So anyway, we're gonna be back on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hopefully you can be here. We'll see you then. I hope everybody has a great rest of your week, and God bless you all. And pray for President Trump because we need President Trump to make some good decisions right now. It's great that they've got indictments on Southern Poverty Law Center. That's great. Let's just hope something comes about. And it could be very well that what we have going on is a cover-up story. But then again, maybe they're going after people. They have done a few things since Blanche has taken over acting AG. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not gonna hold my breath though, that's for sure. Anyway, God bless you all. We'll see you on Friday. See you then.